We get real good at pretending. We learn how to master the art of I'm fine when the truth is we're anything but. We know how to fix our face for the crowd, pull ourselves together before we step out of the car and walk into a room like everything is in perfect order and people applaud us for it. They call it strength. They call it resilience. They call it grace under pressure. But can I tell you something? Heaven isn't fooled by your performance. God doesn't buy your rehearsed lines, your carefully curated image. He sees past the makeup, the posture, the polished Instagram captions, and the polite nods. He sees you, the real you. The one who wakes up in the middle of the night staring at the ceiling, wondering if this ache will ever ease. The one who sits in the bathroom for a moment too long because it's the only place you can breathe without explaining why. We've been taught to hide it. Somewhere along the way, somebody made us believe that showing pain is weakness. Maybe it was your family's rule. We don't talk about that here. Maybe it was the way people handled you when you tried to open up and they brushed it off, changed the subject, or made you feel dramatic for feeling deeply. And so we became experts in concealment. We put on our armor, not realizing that armor can also become a cage. We hold our heads high while bleeding underneath the surface. But the beautiful and terrifying truth is that God has always seen the blood. He's always seen the trembling in your spirit, the weight you carry in your chest, and he's never been repelled by it. You see, we hide because we fear rejection. We think if people knew what was really going on inside of us, they'd see us differently. But God saw it before you even had the words to explain it. He knew the wound before it happened. He's been there in every moment you didn't think anyone noticed. That night you cried quietly into your pillow so no one would hear. He heard every tear hit the fabric. That morning you stared at yourself in the mirror and didn't recognize the person looking back. He was right there whispering, I still see you. Sometimes we try so hard to fool others that we forget we start trying to fool ourselves. We convince ourselves that if we keep moving, the pain will stop mattering. We drown ourselves in work, in relationships, in endless scrolling, in just staying busy, because slowing down means feeling it. But God is not asking you to feel it so you can break. He's asking you to feel it so he can heal. You can't hand him a wound you keep pretending doesn't exist. And he loves you too much to heal the mask you wear instead of the heart you hide. I know it feels safer to let the world think you're unshakable. I know it's hard to admit you're hurting when people depend on you to be the strong one. But strength isn't in pretending you're invincible. Strength is in allowing yourself to be seen when you're vulnerable. You don't have to stand in front of everyone and spill your story, but you do have to stand before God unfiltered. Because when you come to him like that, there's no script, no show, just you and your creator. And that's where freedom starts. Some of you have been praying for answers, asking God to give you clarity, to open doors, to change situations. But the truth is, he's been waiting for you to stop hiding. He's been waiting for you to admit that the thing you've been ignoring is still shaping you, that you still flinch at certain words, that you still carry guilt for something you've already been forgiven for, that you still replay that one moment in your mind when everything shifted. And when you bring that to him, when you bring you to him, he doesn't look away. He doesn't pull back. He doesn't say, I can't handle this. He gathers you closer. He says, I've seen it all and I still choose you. I still love you. I still have plans for you. The mask may keep others from knowing the depth of your hurt, but it can't stop God from knowing the depth of your worth. Just because you can't see the wound doesn't mean it's not still bleeding. We've been conditioned to believe that if nobody notices, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe if the bruise doesn't show, maybe if the smile stays in place, maybe if we can laugh at the right moments and not in the right conversations, then we've outgrown the pain. But let me tell you, some of the deepest pain doesn't leave visible marks. It sits underneath the surface, quietly shaping the way we think, the way we love, the way we trust, and the way we show up in the world. Hidden wounds are tricky because they don't demand attention the way a broken bone or a scraped knee does. They don't scream for stitches or a cast. Instead, they whisper in your decisions. They leak into your relationships. They alter your posture without anyone realizing you're carrying a weight they can't see. And here's the thing, just because the bleeding is silent doesn't mean it's stopped. Silent bleeding can still drain you, weaken you, leave you lightheaded in the spirit. And you don't even realize you're operating on empty until you try to give what you no longer have. I think sometimes we underestimate the impact of what we've survived because we didn't collapse in the middle of it. We say, it didn't break me, so I'm fine. But the truth is, it might not have broken you, yet it still changed you. And if we're not careful, we start building an entire life around avoiding the trigger instead of seeking the healing. We start keeping our hearts at a safe distance. We tell ourselves, I don't need anyone, or I'm just focused on myself. But in reality, we're building walls so no one ever gets close enough to touch the wound. You know what makes hidden wounds so dangerous? You can carry them for years and not realize how much they're costing you. That's why you overthink every word in a conversation. That's why you keep one foot out the door in every relationship. That's why certain moments hit you harder than they should, and you don't even know why you're reacting the way you are. It's not because you're too sensitive or overly emotional. It's because there's something still bleeding inside of you that never got the chance to heal. And I know what you might be thinking, but I prayed about it. I forgave them. I moved on, and you did, but moving on without tending to the wound is like walking away from an accident with an injury you never got checked. It doesn't matter if you keep walking. It doesn't matter if you learn to function around the pain. If it's untreated, it will eventually demand your attention. And God, in His mercy, will sometimes allow circumstances that bring that hidden wound to the surface, not to hurt you, but to heal you, because He loves you too much to let you live your whole life bleeding in places you've forgotten to care for. It's easy to tell yourself that time will take care of it, that distance will dilute the pain. But time doesn't heal wounds. Truth does. And the truth is, until you bring what's hidden into the light, it will keep controlling the parts of you you've been trying to reclaim. You can't fully walk in freedom while protecting the very thing that's keeping you bound. I've learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that you're still bleeding. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because the moment you acknowledge the wound, you position yourself for God to treat it. And here's the miracle. He doesn't just stop the bleeding. He restores what was lost in the process. He puts strength back where pain stole it. He puts hope back where fear drained it. He puts joy back where sorrow consumed it. So if you've been moving through life thinking nobody notices, if you've been telling yourself, I'm fine, just because no one has called you out on your pain, I want you to know this. God has seen it the whole time. He's seen the quiet bleeding, the unspoken grief, the heaviness you've learned to carry like it's part of you. And He's not just here to watch you survive it. He's here to stop the bleeding. We live in a world that celebrates performance. The more put together you look, the more applause you seem to get. People are quick to cheer for the version of you that smiles in every picture, that has the perfect words for every moment, that keeps showing up no matter what's happening behind the scenes. And we start to believe that this is the version we have to keep presenting, not just to people, but to God. We think He's impressed when we can stand tall without showing our limp, when we can pray eloquent prayers without letting the cracks in our voice reveal what's really going on inside. But the truth is, God doesn't need your pretend strength. He's not moved by how well you can fake it. He's moved by how real you're willing to be. Some of us have spent so long pretending to be strong that we don't even know how to stop. We've worn our independence like a badge of honor, thinking that needing help is somehow failure. We've mastered the art of I got it, when deep down we don't. We've learned how to keep the conversation light so no one asks the hard questions. And somewhere in the process, we've convinced ourselves that if we let the fast A drop, we'll lose respect, lose control, maybe even lose people. But God is not like people. You don't have to protect your image with him. You don't have to put on your good clothes and your good words for him to receive you. He doesn't just want the version of you that's presentable. He wants the version of you that's honest. I think about how exhausting it is to keep up a performance. You're smiling in public, but crying in the shower. You're answering, I'm good, before anyone even finishes the question. You're carrying burdens that feel heavier by the day, but convincing yourself you're fine because that's what you've always said. And yet, the more you pretend, the more alone you feel. Because here's the thing. When you only show people your strength, you rob yourself of the chance to be loved in your weakness. And if you keep trying to show God only the polished pieces, you rob yourself of the chance to be healed in the messy ones. There's a reason scripture tells us that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness, not in our performance, not in our presentation, in our weakness. That means the very thing you've been hiding because you thought it made you less is the very place where his power wants to show up the most. That place where you can't figure it out. That moment where you've run out of answers. That situation where you feel like you can't take one more disappointment. That's where he wants to meet you. But you have to be willing to drop the act and say, God, this is where I'm at. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. And I know for some of you, even the thought of saying that out loud feels terrifying because you've built your identity around being the strong one, the reliable one, the one everyone else comes to. But maybe the reason you're so tired is because you've been carrying the weight of holding everyone else together while quietly falling apart yourself. Maybe the bravest thing you could do is put that weight down and admit that you're human. You don't have to be the hero of every story. You don't have to be unshakable to be loved by God. You don't have to be invincible for him to use you. God isn't calling you to prove how tough you are. He's calling you to trust how tender he is, to believe that he's big enough to handle your tears, your fears, your doubts, your questions, your anger, to trust that he's not measuring your worth by how well you hold it together, but by how willing you are to let him hold you when you can't. So if you've been showing God your strength, but hiding your struggle, I want you to know you're safe to bring it all to him. You're safe to tell him the truth. You're safe to put down the armor and just be his child again. Because the truth is, the strength you're pretending to have is nothing compared to the strength he's been waiting to give you. Healing doesn't happen in the dark. You can't treat what you keep hidden. You can't be set free from what you refuse to bring into the light. I know that sometimes keeping the wound tucked away feels safer because once it's exposed, you can't control how it's seen. You can't control how it's handled, and you can't control how much it might hurt to deal with it. But the thing about God is that he already knows. He's already seen it. He's already counted every moment you've tried to suppress, every word you've tried to forget, every tear you've tried to swallow. And he's not afraid of it. He's not disgusted by it. He's not going to walk away from you because of it. When you finally stop running from it, when you stop pushing it down and start placing it in his hands, that's when the real healing begins. You see, bringing something into the light isn't about informing God. It's about inviting him. It's about saying, I'm done pretending this isn't there. I'm done carrying it alone. I'm done letting it shape me in ways I didn't choose. That's the moment you shift from surviving to actually living, because surviving is just getting through each day without falling apart. But healing is stepping into each day without that same weight on your chest. Sometimes we think if we just wait long enough, the wound will close on its own. But time doesn't heal what truth hasn't touched. And the truth is, the pain you keep avoiding is still costing you more than you realize. It's showing up in the way you trust people, in the way you see yourself, in the way you pray. It's even showing up in the dreams you're too afraid to pursue because somewhere deep down, you've convinced yourself you're still too broken to deserve them. God's light is not harsh. It's not the kind of light that exposes to shame. It's the kind of light that exposes to restore. When you let him into the wound, he doesn't just look at it and say, "That's bad." He gets to work. He starts cleansing the infection that's been spreading into other areas of your life. He starts stitching together what was torn. He starts breathing life back into places you thought were permanently numb. And yes, sometimes the process stings. Sometimes it feels worse before it feels better. But that's not because he's hurting you. It's because he's reaching into places you've been guarding for so long that they've grown raw. I know how hard it is to bring those hidden places to him, because somewhere along the way, you learned to survive by keeping them out of reach. Maybe you even convinced yourself that if you don't look at it, it's not really there. But just because you don't acknowledge it doesn't mean it's gone. The enemy loves to hide in unspoken pain because unspoken pain can't be healed. But the moment you bring it into the presence of God, it loses its power over you. And here's the part that blows my mind. God doesn't just want to heal the wound. He wants to redeem the story. He wants to take the very thing that hurt you and use it to help someone else find their way out. He wants to turn your pain into a testimony so that one day you can stand in front of somebody else and say, "I've been there, but I'm not there anymore." That's why exposing the wound isn't weakness. It's warfare. You're refusing to let what hurt you be the thing that holds you forever. Maybe you've been afraid to open up to God because you think he'll be disappointed in you. But can I tell you something? He's not disappointed. He's been waiting for the moment you stop hiding, because the second you do, he can start doing what only he can do. And the beauty is, when you bring it to him, you don't have to figure out the healing process yourself. You don't have to know all the steps. You just have to trust the one who has never failed to finish what he started. It's easy to believe that pain disqualifies you, that what you've been through, what you've done, or what's been done to you has somehow pushed you outside of God's plan for your life. You start to think, if I was really chosen, I wouldn't have these scars. If I was really meant for something great, I wouldn't have gone through that. And so you shrink, you settle, you keep yourself in the background because you're convinced that broken people don't belong on the front lines of purpose. But the truth is, God has been using broken people to build his kingdom from the very beginning. Your pain is not the proof that you've been counted out. It's the proof that you're being prepared. Some of the most powerful voices in the world belong to people who thought they had nothing left to give. They didn't set out to inspire anyone. They didn't try to become examples. They just survived what should have destroyed them. And in surviving, they discovered that the very thing they thought made them unworthy was the thing God wanted to use. You see, what feels like damage to you looks like destiny to him. What you see as a setback, he sees as a setup. The wound that you keep trying to hide is the very place where his glory can shine the brightest. We think we have to be flawless for God to use us, but that's just pride in disguise. That's us saying, "God, I'll bring you my life when it looks good enough." But he doesn't need your life to look good. He needs your life to be surrendered. He needs you to trust that he can take the parts of your story you're ashamed of and turn them into the very platform he stands on to speak through you. If you wait until you feel perfect to step into your calling, you'll never step at all. Some of you have been holding back because you don't feel qualified. You've convinced yourself that there are people more polished, more educated, more confident, more worthy. But the truth is, God didn't choose you because you were qualified. He chose you because you were willing. And sometimes the only reason you're willing is because you've been through enough to know you can't do it without him. That humility, that dependence, that awareness of your need for his power, that's what makes you dangerous to the enemy. Think about it. When you've been through hell and you're still standing, you carry an authority that can't be taught in a classroom. You can speak to storms because you've survived them. You can comfort the broken because you've been broken. You can tell somebody God will bring you through, and it carries weight because you're living proof. That's why your pain is not a disqualification. It's an invitation to step into a level of purpose that can only be birthed out of struggle. And I know it doesn't feel like that when you're in it. When you're in the middle of the wound, you don't see purpose. You see loss. You see confusion. You see everything you thought you could count on slipping through your hands. But purpose is often hidden in the very things we would have never chosen for ourselves. It's buried in the nights you cried until you couldn't anymore. It's woven into the moments you didn't think you could get back up, but you did. God is not intimidated by your pain. He's not sitting in heaven wondering how he's going to work this into his plan. He already factored it in. He already knew how he was going to use it before you even knew you were going to face it. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the thing you thought ruined you was the thing that revealed you. It revealed the strength he put in you. It revealed the faith you didn't know you had. It revealed the voice you never thought you'd use. So don't disqualify yourself because of the places you've been wounded. Don't let the enemy convince you that you're too damaged to be effective. If anything, those wounds are the proof that you've been on the battlefield and lived to tell about it. They are not marks of shame. They are evidence of survival. And in God's hands, they will become the very signs that point other people to him. One day, the thing that hurt you will become the thing that helps someone else. I know that's hard to believe when you're still in the middle of it, when the wound is still fresh, when the memory still makes your chest tighten and your stomach turn. Right now, all you can see is the pain, the loss, the unfairness of it all. But there's a truth that runs deeper than the hurt. God never wastes anything. If he allowed you to walk through it, he has a plan to use it, not just for your healing, but for the healing of others. When we think about our stories, there are chapters we want to skip, paragraphs we wish we could erase, whole seasons we wish never happened. We like to share the parts that make us look strong, the victories, the answered prayers, the moments we can wrap in a bow. But the truth is, the power of your testimony isn't in the polished parts. It's in the real ones. It's in the nights you wanted to give up but didn't. It's in the days you thought you were alone but weren't. It's in the moments where the only thing holding you together was the grace of God. And here's what happens when you share those moments. Someone else who's in their own pit starts to believe they can climb out too. Someone who thought they were the only one starts to realize they're not crazy. They're not weak. They're not hopeless. They're just human. And humans can heal. You never know how much your story could be the lifeline someone's been praying for. But if you hide it, if you keep it locked away because you're ashamed you ever went through it, then the enemy gets to keep winning in a battle you've already survived. God specializes in turning wounds into weapons. The same place where the enemy thought he could take you out is the same place God will use to raise you up. That heartbreak that made you swear you'd never trust again will one day give you the words to help someone trust again. That season of loss that made you feel like your prayers didn't matter will one day make you the living proof that prayer changes everything. That mistake you thought defined you will one day become the story that reminds someone else that grace is still real. And no, it's not about reliving your pain just for the sake of telling it. It's about allowing God to transform it into something that can bring freedom to someone else. When He redeems your story, the wound doesn't disappear, but it doesn't hurt the same way anymore. It becomes a scar. And scars don't bleed, they testify. They don't cry out in pain. They speak of survival. They don't whisper shame, they shout victory. The enemy wants you to believe your story is too messy to be told. He wants you to think no one would understand, no one would listen, no one would care. But what if your story is the exact one someone's been waiting to hear? What if your journey through darkness is the very thing that will lead someone else into the light? What if the key to someone else's breakthrough is locked inside the chapter you've been trying to hide? I know it's not easy. I know sharing your wounds requires vulnerability. I know it means letting people see a side of you you've worked hard to protect. But can I tell you something? That vulnerability is where the power is. That transparency is what turns your pain into purpose, because people aren't set free by your perfection. They're set free by your truth. And when you see God use your story to bring someone else hope, something shifts in you. The wound that once made you question everything becomes the evidence that God really can bring beauty from ashes. The pain that once felt meaningless suddenly makes sense. And you realize that your story was never just about you. It was about the people who would hear it and find their own strength to keep going.